A young man misses his interview to help a stranger. This simple act of kindness will unravel a twist he never saw coming, testing his fate and his future. What awaits him is a lesson about life's unexpected rewards. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The alarm on Alex's phone screamed. He jolted awake. His big interview was in 90 minutes. He scrambled into his only good suit, gulped down terrible coffee, and ran for the bus stop. This was it. The interview was at Nexus Dynamics, a rising tech star. It was his dream to work on their public safety algorithms. He had codes of ethics printed in his portfolio. The bus was late, then it broke down. 5 blocks from the Nexus Tower, Alex made a decision. He would run. He was sprinting, tie flapping, when he saw it. A sleek, black town car was pulled over on the shoulder. An older man in an impossibly expensive suit stood beside it, looking at a completely flat tire with an expression of utter disdain, like the tire had personally insulted him. Alex skidded to a stop. His interview was in 15 minutes. He should keep running. But the man looked so helpless and arrogant, it was a combination that irked Alex. He changed course. Need a hand. The man looked him up and down, taking in the cheap suit, the running sweat. Do you look like you know how to change a tire? Alex bristled. Better than someone who looks at it and hopes it fixes itself. He dropped his briefcase and peered at the car. It had a custom rim, a fancy locking lug nut. You have the key for the lock. The man, whose name was Silas Thorne, grunted and handed over a small tool from the glove box. Alex went to work. The car's jack was flimsy, already bending under the weight. Alex muttered, insufficient load-bearing structure, idiot design. He looked around, saw a thick, flat piece of scrap wood in a nearby ditch. He wedged it under the jack, creating a stable platform. It was a logical fix, like debugging bad code. As he worked, Silas watched, intrigued. The boy was efficient, his movements precise. Running late for something? Silas asked, knotting the suit. Job interview, Nexus Dynamics. Alex grunted, wrestling the flat off. Nexus, cute little company. What's your field? Ethical AI architecture. I want to build systems that help people, that have guardrails against bias and misuse. Alex got the spare on, starting to tighten the lugs in a star pattern. Silas gave a short, cold laugh. Guardrails slow you down. The market doesn't reward caution, it rewards results. Alex looked up, his face hot. Results at what cost? Your kind of thinking leads to surveillance tech that targets poor neighborhoods or logistics algorithms that burn out drivers. I don't want to build that. My kind, Silas's eyes glinted. You know nothing about me. I know the type, profit over people. You probably run some soul-crushing conglomerate. Alex finished tightening the last lug. He stood, wiping his greasy hands on his dress pants, ruining them. There, you're not helpless anymore. Good luck with your, whatever it is you do that's so important. He grabbed his briefcase. It was 9:58. His interview was at 10:00. He was 2 blocks away. It was hopeless. Silas watched him run off, a furious, principled, and oddly competent young man. He hadn't thanked him. Instead, he pulled out his phone and took a clear picture of Alex's back. He sent it to his assistant with a text. Find him, all details, the one who missed the Nexus interview. Then Silas Thorne, founder and CEO of Viper Security Solutions, a private military and intelligence corporation, got in his car and drove away. He had just found a fascinating new project. Alex arrived at the Nexus lobby at 10:07. The receptionist gave him a pitying look. I'm sorry, Mr. Chen. The hiring manager had a hard stop at 10. They can't see you. His heart sank. Another failure. He walked out into the city, defeated. Meanwhile, in a sleek tower across town, Silas read the dossier on Alexander Alex Chen, brilliant academic record, top of his class in computer science, a history of activist projects, building apps for food banks, exposing flaws in university security systems, idealistic to a fault, poor, desperate. He argued with me, Silas said to his head of acquisitions, a sharp woman named Victoria. He had fire, and he fixed a problem with elegant logic. He saw the system flaw and patched it. He missed his interview. Nexus was going to offer him a junior position in their ethics division, Victoria said. Ethics, Sealers sneered, a department designed to make people feel better about doing the wrong thing slowly. He leaned back. I don't want to offer him a job, I want to own his potential, by Nexus. Victoria didn't blink. It's a tech firm, Sealers, not a defense contractor, their board won't sell. Make them an offer they can't refuse. Use the Blackwood Fund. Do it quietly, then clean house. I only want one asset from the whole company, him. 2 weeks later, Alex was still job hunting, feeling more hopeless. Then, a letter arrived on thick, expensive paper. It was from Nexus Dynamics. His heart leapt. An apology, a second chance. He opened it. It was a formal offer of employment. His title was Associate Systems Architect. The salary was triple what the original job had posted. The benefits were staggering, but the letterhead was different. It now read, Nexus Dynamics, a subsidiary of Viper Holdings. Confused, Alex went online. Business news sites were buzzing. Viper Holdings acquires Nexus in surprise takeover. Ethical tech firm swallowed by private military giant. Ice filled Alex's veins. Viper, the mercenary company, the one involved in scandals, the man in the suit. It couldn't be a coincidence. He called the number on the letter. A smooth voice answered, Mr. Chen's office. I got a job offer. There must be a mistake. No mistake, Mr. Chen. Your employment is effective immediately. Your orientation is tomorrow at 9 a.m. at the Viper headquarters, not the Nexus building. The line went dead. It wasn't an offer, it was a summons. The next day, Alex stood in the stark, modern lobby of Viper HQ. It felt more like a fortress than an office. He was led to a sterile lab, not an office cubicle. A project lead handed him a tablet. Your first project. Optimize this facial recognition suite for low-light, high-stress environments, for urban pacification. Alex stared. Pacification? You mean crowd control? This is for military use. The application is not your concern. The optimization is. Your code is due Friday. Alex felt sick. This was the antithesis of everything he believed in. He was a prisoner in a gilded cage. He tried to refuse. He was told his employment contract, which he'd never signed, had a non-compete and a liability clause that would leave him bankrupt if he quit. Viper owned him. He met Sealers Thorne again a week later. Sealers toured the lab, stopping at Alex's station, making progress. Chen. This is wrong, Alex said, his voice low with anger. You bought a company just to trap me here. I acquired potential, Sealers corrected. You have a mind that sees systems, but you cling to childish morals. I will teach you to see the real world, where strength is the only ethic. You're a monster, Alex spat. Sealers smiled, a cold, pleased smile. And you, Mr. Chen, are my new pet project. Break your principles, then we'll see what you can really build. Alex was trapped, but he wasn't broken. He looked at the code on his screen, the pacification software, and a dangerous idea began to form. If he was forced to work on their systems, maybe he could build in a few guardrails of his own, not to stop them, but to turn them. The war wasn't on a battlefield, it was in the code, and Alex had just been drafted. Life inside Viper HQ was a sleek, soulless nightmare. Alex's lab was a glass-walled box, constantly observed. His apartment, paid for by Viper, was a beautiful cage in a secure building. Every line of code he wrote was monitored by a system called Watchtower. He was a prisoner with a platinum keycard. But Alex's mind was a prison break waiting to happen. He couldn't openly rebel, so he started to subvert. The project was Project Sentinel, the low-light facial recognition software. Officially, he worked on optimizing the image scrubbing algorithms, but in the hidden layers of the code, he began to weave a different logic. He built a subtle bias for blurring. In certain pixel pattern configurations, patterns that matched the headscarves, hairstyles, and facial structures most common in the very conflict zones Viper operated in, the software would fail to get a clear read. It would introduce a 2% processing lag, a random error that would log as a hardware issue. He called his hidden code the Veil. It was ethical sabotage, line by line. The stress was immense. The only light came from an unexpected place, the lab system administrator, a woman named Lena. She was the one who managed the servers, the updates, the network health. She was sharp, sardonic, and had shadows in her eyes that mirrored his own. She'd bring him coffee, her fingers brushing his, a spark of shared understanding passing between them. Another thrilling day building the future of warfare, Chen, she asked, her voice dry. Just trying to make the world a safer, more ambiguously blurry place, he'd mutter back. Their chemistry was a quiet, charged thing in the sterile environment, a shared look of disgust during a corporate propaganda video from Sealers, her hand lingering on his shoulder when she leaned over to check a server log. It was the only human connection in the metal and glass wasteland. One day she slid into the chair next to him. "Watchtower has a blind spot," she said softly, not looking at him, her eyes on her own screen. "Data archival. It's so focused on real-time code monitoring, it only deeply scans archived project files once a week, on Sunday at 3 a.m. A theoretical person could write anything in a test file before then, and as long as it was archived before the scan, it might just look like garbage data." Alex's heart hammered. She was giving him a weapon and telling him she knew what he was doing. "Why?" he whispered. She met his eyes. "My brother was a journalist. He was pacified by Viper contractors in a country they weren't supposed to be in. I'm not here by choice either." She was a prisoner too, using her skills to survive, waiting for a chance. They became secret allies. Lena covered for his odd data transfers. He wrote small, beautiful programs for her, a screensaver of breaking locks, a music player that generated songs from firewall logs. It was their rebellion. Sealers, meanwhile, was watching Alex's progress. The project was moving, but slower than expected. The errors were frustrating. He summoned Alex to his office, a room with a view of the city that felt like a throne room. "Your work is adequate, Chen, but it lacks ambition. I didn't bring you here to be adequate. I brought you here to be brilliant, to see the power you hold at your fingertips." Sealers leaned forward. "I have a new assignment, Project Pinpoint. It's a drone targeting liaison system. It takes Sentinel's IDs and links them to a kinetic response. I want you to work on the latency reduction, make the trigger faster." Alex felt the blood drain from his face. He wasn't just blurring faces anymore. He was being asked to sharpen a bullet. I can't." "You can and you will," Sealers said, his voice pleasant but final. "Or your mother's very nice, very vulnerable apartment building will have a catastrophic and entirely coincidental gas leak. Do you understand systems now, Alex?" It was a direct threat, the ruthless logic of Sealers's world. Alex understood perfectly. He nodded, numb. He went back to the lab. Lena saw his face. What did he want? Alex told her, her face paled. "You can't do it." "I have to," he threatened my mom. He put his head in his hands. "I can't build a faster way to kill people." Lena was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "What if you built a way to stop it?" She laid out a plan, audacious and dangerous. Project Pinpoint, like all systems, would need to be tested. It would require a live-fire drill, a simulation in a controlled environment. Viper had a private testing ground in the desert. If theoretically, during that test, the system were to experience a catastrophic cascading failure, a failure that corrupted its core target acquisition protocols and sent a ceasefire loop to every linked weapon system, it would be a major setback. It would take them months to rebuild. And the blame, she said, her eyes gleaming, would fall on the original Sentinel software, which has been having all those unfortunate little errors. They'd scrap it. They'd have to start over. Alex stared at her. She was talking about destroying the project from the inside, about using his forced labor to build a self-destruct button. It was treason against Viper. If they were caught, they'd disappear. "The Sunday blind spot," he said slowly. "We'd have to write the kill code and archive it before the scan, then trigger it remotely during the test." "I can get you a one-time encrypted data burst to the test server," Lena said. "A 5-second window. You'd have to embed the trigger in your latency code. It would have to be perfect." It was their only shot, a chance to not just slow Viper down, but to wound it. Alex looked at Lena, at this brave, furious woman who had become his only ally. He felt a surge of something more than alliance. He reached out and took her hand. "If we get caught." "We are already in prison," she said, lacing her fingers with his. "Let's at least try to blow up the walls." They worked in secret. In the dead of night, in hidden virtual machines, Alex wrote the kill switch code. It was his masterpiece, an elegant, vicious piece of logic that would, when activated, make the pinpoint system believe every target was an ally and every ally a system error, forcing a total shutdown. Lena built the ghost pathway to deliver it. The day of the live-fire test arrived. Sealers himself was going to observe. Alex and Lena were in the lab, monitoring the data feeds. Everything looked normal. Alex's improved latency code was running. Hidden inside it was the bomb. On the video feed, they saw a desert range. A drone was in the air. A target dummy was on the ground. The order came, engage. Alex held his breath. He nodded to Lena. She initiated the burst. The encrypted packet shot through the system. On screen, the drone locked onto the target. Then it wobbled. The targeting laser flickered. A system-wide alert flashed across every Viper screen in the room. Target acquisition error, protocol corruption, mandatory ceasefire initiated. All SYSDMS offline. In the desert, the drone powered down and landed harmlessly. In the observation booth, Sealers Thorne stared, his face a mask of cold fury. He turned from the window and looked directly at the camera in Alex's lab. He knew. Alarms blared in the HQ. Security lockdown. "We have to go now," Lena said, grabbing Alex's hand. She led him not to the exit, but to a maintenance duct. She disabled the alarm for weeks ago. They crawled into the bowels of the building. They were fugitives inside the fortress. Sealers' empire had a crack in it, and they were in the crack. They had wounded the beast. Now they had to escape its teeth. The maintenance ducts were a claustrophobic maze of metal and dust. Lena led the way with the certainty of someone who had studied blueprints for months, waiting for this moment. Alarms whooped faintly through the walls of Viper HQ. Alex's heart hammered against his ribs, not just from fear, but from the adrenaline of what they'd just done. They had broken the weapon. "He knew it was me," Alex gasped as they crawled. "He suspected," Lena corrected, her voice tight, "but he can't prove anything yet, not until they dissect the code, and we'll be gone here." She stopped at a junction, pried open a small vent cover, and dropped down into a dark server room. It was a backup hub, cool and humming. This was her domain. She went straight to a terminal, her fingers flying. "What are you doing?" Alex whispered. "We have to run." "Running isn't enough," she said, her eyes glued to the screen. "He'll find us. He'll make your mom disappear. He'll make my family disappear. We have to burn the house down with him in it." She plugged in a hardened drive. "I've been siphoning data for a year. Financial logs, black site locations, contracts for operations that violate international laws. The pinpoint test failure will trigger a system-wide diagnostic. For about 90 seconds, security protocols will be focused inward, looking for the internal flaw. In that window, I can blast this data packet out to every major news outlet, intelligence agency, and rival corporation on my list." It was the nuclear option. Exposing Viper would cause chaos, bury Sealers in investigations, and hopefully make hunting 2 rogue employees the least of his problems. "Do it," Alex said. Lena initiated the sequence. A progress bar filled on the screen, 10%, 30%. The air in the room felt charged, 70%. The server room door hissed open. Sealers Thorne stood there, flanked by 2 hulking security men. He wasn't angry. He looked intrigued, disappointed but intrigued. He held a small tablet. "A cascading failure," Sealers said, stepping inside. "Elegant, truly, a logic bomb. I underestimated you, Alex. I thought you'd break to my will. Instead, you tried to break my will." He glanced at the screen. "And you, Lena, I knew you were a leak. I kept you close to see what you'd try to plug into. This is ambitious." The progress bar hit 90%. Lena's hand inched toward a physical kill switch under the desk. "Don't," Sealers said calmly. "The moment you do, my men break both his hands. He'll never code again. Is your crusade worth his talent?" Alex stepped in front of Lena. "It's over, Silas. The data is gone. People will know what you are." "People know what I am," Silas smiled. "They just don't care until it's in a neat package, and your package won't arrive." He nodded to the tablet. "The outgoing data burst was intercepted at the firewall. My firewall. All you've done is given me a list of my enemies. Thank you for that." The progress bar completed. Transmission failed. Lena's shoulders slumped. "Now," Silas said, his voice turning businesslike, "you have both proven to be more trouble than you're worth as employees, but you have also proven your ingenuity. That has value. So new options. Option 1, you are erased tonight. Option 2, you continue your work not in a lab but in a very comfortable, very secure off-grid facility. No more pretenses. You will build what I ask for as long as I ask. Your families will be left in peace, in ignorance. Choose." It was a worse prison, a permanent one. Alex looked at Lena. He saw no fear in her eyes, only a defiant fury. He thought of his mother, living her quiet life. He thought of the blurry faces in his code, the people he'd tried to protect. He couldn't build bullets for this man. "There's a third option," Alex said, his voice surprisingly steady. "Oh," Silas raised an eyebrow. "You let us walk out of here, right now." Silas laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. "And why would I do that?" "Because if you don't," Alex said, meeting his gaze, "the real failsafe activates." Silas's smile froze. "What real failsafe?" "The one I wrote into Project Sentinel weeks ago, the one called Judas Protocol." Alex was bluffing, spinning a story from pure desperation. It wasn't just about blurring faces, it was about tagging them. Every face that passed through Sentinel's servers in the last month, including every photo from your corporate security cameras, every employee badge scan, every visitor. He stared pointedly at Silas, has a hidden metadata marker attached to it. A marker that, upon my disappearance or arrest, gets quietly uploaded to a cloud server, and from there, it gets mailed as a lovely searchable database to every three-letter agency on the planet. A complete map of Viper personnel. How long do you think your private army stays private when the CIA has a yearbook with names and faces? Alex's mind was racing, constructing the lie with coding logic. It had to be plausible. It had to be a systemic threat. Silas's face went blank. He turned to one of his security men. "Check it, now." The man spoke into a comms unit. A tense minute passed. The man listened, his expression growing uncertain. "Sir, there are anomalous data packets attached to the archived Sentinel image files. Their purpose isn't clear. The file size is consistent with hidden metadata." It was Lena's work, her hidden data siphons, her archived test files. Alex's bluff had landed on a real, unexplained anomaly, the perfect coincidence. Silas's cold eyes bore into Alex. He saw not a frightened kid, but a rival system architect who had outmaneuvered him. The predator respected a bigger predator. The logic was sound. Containing them was now more dangerous than releasing them. "You walk out," Silas said slowly, "and the protocol stays dormant, forever. And our families are left alone, forever," Alex countered, "and we get a head start, you don't look for us." A long, silent standoff filled the humming room. Finally, Silas gave a single, sharp nod. "Get out of my sight." Lena didn't need telling twice. She grabbed Alex's arm and pulled him toward the door, past the stunned guards. They walked, then ran through the sterile halls, out a fire exit, and into the cool night air of the city. They didn't stop running until they were 6 blocks away, lost in the crowds. They had no money, no phones, nothing. They were free, but homeless and hunted if Silas changed his mind. "The Judas Protocol," Lena gasped, leaning against an alley wall. "That was insane, brilliant but insane." "You had the anomalous data," Alex said, grinning wildly with relief. "I just gave it a scary name." They used a payphone, which still existed in one dusty corner of the city, to call the only person Alex trusted implicitly, his old college roommate, Ben, a journalist for a small, scrappy online news outlet. An hour later, Ben picked them up in his beat-up car. In his tiny apartment, over bad pizza, they told Ben everything. He listened, his eyes wide. "You have to go public, now, Not with the big data dump, but with the story, your story, a human story. It's the one thing a corporation like Viper can't hack or buy. Ben worked through the night. Alex and Lena provided details, proof, screenshots Lena had saved, Alex's hidden veil code fragments. Ben wrote the article. It wasn't about the terabytes of financial crimes. It was titled, The Code of Conscience, How a PMC Kidnapped a Coder to Build Its Weapons. He published it at dawn. The effect was electric. The dry financial data sealers had intercepted would have been a page 17 story, but a personal narrative, a young man missing an interview to help a stranger, only to be forcibly acquired, forced to work on lethal tech, his mother threatened, it was a viral bomb. It was human, relatable, and terrifying. News outlets picked it up. CNN, BBC, The Guardian. Senators demanded inquiries. The Department of Defense launched a review of all Viper contracts. Silas Thorne wasn't just a businessman anymore. He was a Bond villain in the public eye. The pressure was too great. To save his core military contracts, Viper Holdings publicly denounced Silas Thorne's rogue management, threw him to the wolves, and shuttered the Nexus division. A massive public audit began. Alex and Lena were safe, hidden by the spotlight. 6 months later, the dust had settled. Silas was facing multiple federal investigations, his assets frozen, his empire in ruins. Alex and Lena were in a new city, in a small apartment that was truly theirs. They had started their own tiny firm, Guardian Logic. Their mission? To audit and build ethical safeguards for AI and security software. Their first client was a major humanitarian NGO. One evening, they were working on a proposal. Lena looked over at Alex. "You know," she said, "that tire you fixed, worst career move ever, and the best thing that ever happened to me." He smiled, putting down his laptop. He walked over and pulled her up from her chair into his arms. The chemistry that had sparked in a prison of glass and steel now burned warm and bright in their freedom. He kissed her deeply, a kiss that tasted of late nights, shared danger, and a future they had stolen back together. "I have a theory," he murmured against her lips. "What's that?" "That helping a stranger is never the wrong code to run. You just have to be ready to debug the hell out of the consequences." She laughed, and the sound was the sweetest noise he'd ever coded. They were not heroes in the traditional sense. They were survivors, they were architects, and they had learned that in a world run by ruthless systems, the most subversive act was to hold onto your code of ethics and to find the one person who speaks your language in the silence. They had missed an interview, but they had found a war, a partner, and a purpose. And in the end, they hadn't just fixed a flat tire, they had blown up the whole car and built a better road. The media storm was a shield, but Alex and Lena knew it wouldn't last forever. They used the time wisely. With Ben's help, they secured a meeting with a powerful, reform-minded Congresswoman, Evelyn Shaw. In a secure office, they laid out not just their story, but the technical evidence Lena had risked her life to copy, the architecture of Project Sentinel, the proof of the pinpoint linkage, the internal memos showing deliberate targeting of protected populations. "This isn't just about one company," Alex said, his voice firm. "It's about a business model. They weaponize talent. They see ethics as a bug to be patched out." Congresswoman Shaw listened intently. "The problem is jurisdiction. Their contracts are global, layered through shell companies." Lena leaned forward, "Then hit them where they are legal. Their US banking partners, their corporate charters. The moment they violated their own contractual terms with the Department of Defense by engaging in human trafficking, forcing Alex to work under threat, they opened themselves up to RICO statutes." A plan formed, bigger than a news article. Shaw launched a formal subcommittee investigation. The testimony of the kidnapped coder and the sysadmin became a cornerstone. Alex, once terrified of public speaking, found his voice describing the cold logic of Silas's threat. Lena, with calm precision, outlined the digital prison they'd been kept in. The legal avalanche began. Viper's stock plummeted. Their board, desperate to survive, offered up Silas and his inner circle in a plea deal. Silas Thorne was indicted on charges of kidnapping, coercion, fraud, and violations of the Arms Export Control Act. The day the indictment was unsealed, Alex and Lena watched the news in their new apartment. They didn't celebrate, they just held hands, feeling the strange quiet of a battle ended. A week later, a courier delivered a simple, unmarked envelope. Inside was a single sheet of high-quality paper. The message was typed, unsigned. The flaw in your Judas Protocol bluff was its elegance. It was a threat a better man would have built. You are that better man, a waste. S. It was a chilling compliment from the ruins of his empire. Alex burned the note. With the settlement from the lawsuit against Viper, which their lawyer, a shark named Jessica who loved taking down bullies, had secured, Alex and Lena fully funded Guardian Logic. They didn't just consult, they built. Their first major project was Haven, an open-source encryption and anonymization suite designed for humanitarian workers and journalists in conflict zones, the exact opposite of Viper's work. The chemistry between them deepened into a partnership that was romantic, intellectual, and unshakable. One night, over lines of code for Haven, Lena looked at him. "You realize," she said, "we're building guardrails for the whole world." "Somebody has to," he replied, "and I know a great sysadmin who can make them unhackable." He pulled a small box from his pocket, not a ring, a USB drive engraved with a single line of code, "If partner equals Lena, life complete." She laughed, a full, joyful sound, and kissed him. "It's about time. The runtime on my patience was getting low." They married in a small courthouse ceremony with Ben and Congresswoman Shaw as witnesses. It was quiet, real, and perfectly theirs. Years later, Guardian Logic was a respected, if small, force in tech ethics. They had a daughter, Maya, who at age 5 was already taking apart alarm clocks to see the music. One sunny afternoon, Alex was helping Maya with a simple puzzle game on a tablet. It was about getting a lost cat home, avoiding obstacles. "See, sweetie," he said, "you have to think about what the cat sees. You have to build a safe path." Maya, with fierce concentration, solved the level. She looked up at him. "Daddy, did you ever build a path for a lost cat?" He thought of a rainy day, a flat tire, and a choice that detoured his entire life into danger, love, and purpose. He smiled. "Yeah, pumpkin, I did, and it was the best line of code I ever wrote." The empire of Sealer's Thorn was gone, dismantled by law and exposed by truth. But from its ashes, Alex and Lena had built something more enduring, a tiny, resilient kingdom of conscience. They hadn't just escaped a monster, they had used the monster's own tools to build a sanctuary. And in the quiet hum of their work, in their daughter's laughter, in the safety of their shared life, they heard the only code that ever really mattered, the one that chooses people over power every single time. Thank you for watching. Would you have stopped to help, even if it meant losing your biggest opportunity? Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and subscribe for more stories where a single choice changes everything.